My baby daddy done took advantage of a mentally ill person and had a dog.
I watched that 14+ part story, so you don't have to. I do want to give a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about violence, DV, kidnapping. That's Destiny, and after having 4 children with her baby daddy that she met when she was 15 years old, she found out that he cheated on her and ultimately got a woman pregnant who also had a disability, and the entire time he was...
Bruh, this dustiness is getting crazy, bro. This man went and had a baby with a disabled woman, bro. I don't know if old girl can recover from that. Like, he left you for... You must have really gave him a hard time for him to leave you for some disabled cheese. Well, I can hold y'all for too long, man, but hey, fam, if, like I say, if y'all smoke spliffs or drink wine or whatever, when you watch my videos, y'all go light it up. Hey, let's have a good time. Light it up or pour it up and come and watch this with your boy. You feel me? Let's get to it.
He's taking full advantage of her. When she first met him, he lied about where he was from. He's from Mississippi, but they met in Florida. When she finally got him to come out there and see her, they spent their first night together at a Hilton pool. After that, they were homeless together for about 6 months. She ended up getting pregnant and then got him a car. And that's when he really started to get violent, get very mean, and start beating on her. Now
Wait, hold on. I ain't gonna pause it too much. That's pretty long, but they was homeless? She was willing to be homeless with you? And she bought you a car? Man, bro, some of y'all dudes be letting them good ones slip, bro. She bought him a car and she was homeless with him. You feel me?
She was making a lot of money from Instagram at the time, and so he was getting very jealous of that and ended up deleting her Instagram, which was like paying for her children's things, paying for their hotel room. Now at that time they were also stealing cars. I guess that's what she said a lot of kids in Florida were doing. And one of the things that happened was that they stole a car and she falls asleep in it, and she wakes up and he kidnapped her and took her to Mississippi. They get to his grandmother's house and she's like, she can't come in. Eventually she agrees. They end up staying there for about 4 to 6 months, and it was like the worst experience ever, she says. The family was fine, but it just wasn't it. Some time go by, she gets an apartment of her own in Mississippi. The first day that she moves in, he breaks everything in the apartment. She's very young, she's very in love, she forgives him, lets him come back in. He leaves his grandmother's house, comes and stays with her, and things just get even more toxic from there. She ends up going through his phone and finding out that he actually had a baby with his cousin, and they tried to deny it, the family, and she's like, there's no denying it, like he clearly had a baby with his cousin. Now,
he had a baby with his cousin? Bro, there's something wrong with Buddy, bro. You had a baby with your cousin and a disabled bro. I'm sorry, bro.
They live right above her landlord, and her landlord can hear everything. So she goes up there constantly telling them, like, quiet down, please stop. Now, during all this chaos, also what ended up happening was that they both caught a robbery charge. Destiny was asleep in the car, and I guess Greg robbed somebody, and the victim, pointed out that it was Destiny and Greg that both robbed them. She had no idea about anything. She ends up getting probation, and at this point, she can't leave Florida. Mind you, she's big on social media, so the cops can see all of this interaction, all of this like craziness that's happening between the two of them every time they're fighting on social media. One of the times she kicks Greg out, he ends up calling her probation officer, saying that she followed him back to Mississippi and saying that she's been stalking him and harassing him. And so she ends up getting a call from the probation officer saying like, yo, you're violating, you need to come and turn yourself in. So she does, and while she's gone, he begs to stay in her apartment in Mississippi, and she's like, okay, fine, like you can stay in my apartment, but like don't be acting crazy. He's like, I'm just gonna go to work. So she's in Florida and gets a call from her landlord saying like, why is it so noisy in your house? Like I told you guys to keep it down. And she's like, I don't know why it's noisy, I'm not there. And so she's like, tells her landlord like, go upstairs and see what's going on. So the landlord goes up there only to find out like nobody's opening the door for them. So then she doesn't tell him when she comes back from Florida. She just comes through, and when she opens her house door, she finds out that there's condoms all over the place, on the counter, on the floor, in the bedroom, everywhere. And she's just like, who are you with? Now, he didn't respond back to her while she was in Florida. He hit her up a day later saying like, oh, it was my uncle that was over here. Now, she thought maybe they were playing games and playing music. Maybe that's why. But now when she saw the condoms, she was starting to like, gears are turning. When she confronted him, he broke her nose. She never told authorities. Her and Greg's sister had gotten close, and so when she tried to call her, Greg got mad and basically kidnapped Destiny, took her to the fields out in the country, and just beat her and beat her and beat her, and was telling her like, you have 30 seconds to get up and run. And she's just so tired. She's just like, I'm not doing anything. And he gets so mad I guess his phone falls out of his pocket. She calls the cops and just leaves it on the floor there. They end up surrounding the entire place and getting roadblocks everywhere. So he ends up slipping out, driving back to his grandmother's house. She gets back to his grandmother's house. The cops follow them. She tells the cops, he didn't kidnap me, it's fine, everything's fine. They're like, okay. They go home, they go to sleep, and he sleeps in the game room, and she's like, that's weird. So she goes through his phone, and she finds out that he's been texting somebody. She takes that number, puts it into Snapchat, and sees that it's actually his auntie, and they're talking nasty, like real nasty. And his uncle, which is his blood uncle, is in prison at the time. And so while she was in Florida, that's who was in the house using all those condoms with him, was his own auntie.
Bro, this gotta be the most dustiest one that we done. So you mess with your auntie, you got your cousin pregnant, and then the disabled shit, bro. You can't make this? It's the dustiest one we done. Y'all let me know in the comments if it is. This is crazy.
Of course, she denies it, all that. The family denies it. And then one day, she, at this point has forgiven Greg. She's walking to Walmart, and the auntie jumps out of the bushes and maces Destiny and her child to the point that the baby can't even breathe. Destiny, of course, files, charges against her. The auntie tries to file charges back, and Greg organized this entire thing. He brought the auntie, told her where she was going to be, everything. She never liked that auntie anyway, but this is just proving why. After this whole incident, she ends up forgiving him. He wants to go smoke with the landlord's daughter and their best friend, and she doesn't care. She wasn't smoking at that time anyway. So they leave to go do that, and they're gone like 10 hours. When they come back, she beats him down. Like, where did you think you were going? Like, you were just going to be in this girl's car this entire day? She threatens the landlord's daughter, which ends up getting her evicted out of that house as well. She's like, whatever. She moves out. She needed about 2 weeks to move into her new place, and she's trying to stay at Greg's grandmother's house, but it's so bad. She's like, I'm just gonna go back to Florida for a bit. She's going back to Florida, and he's texting her like, I hate you, I hope you get unalived. And her car ends up flipping in the highway. I'll put the picture here. And her arm gets scraped because the window's open while it's sliding down the highway. She ends up getting her baby rescued, and then people help her to get out of the car as well. But she just, was trying to prove the power of words and how messing with evil people and them speaking on your life could really put you in such a terrible situation. So she's so traumatized from the situation, she flies him to Florida to come pick her up and drive her rental car back to Mississippi. And so when he does that, they get back to Mississippi. He takes her rental car, disappears, comes back hours later with the entire front of the car completely wrecked, her rental car. So she just extends the rental because she's like, I'm gonna need to figure out something to. In the meanwhile, she ends up getting a new car, and then he goes and steals that car. He can track that car, so she's watching him drive up the highway to some area in the country, and she's like, there's nothing over there but a college. Entire time he out there hooking up with some girl, making her car smell like straight up dank and then also sex. And when she gets her car back, that's exactly what it smells like. He's begging her to come back home. She signs into his Facebook, sees that he's not talking to anybody, so she's like, okay, fine, you can come home. At this point, she's pregnant with her second baby, and she didn't realize that she was in labor because her first one was C-section, and the grandmother's like, you need to go to the hospital. Tells Greg to take her, and he's like, I have to go to work, as if this is not a life or death situation. She finally gets him to take her to the hospital. When they get there with the sister, he disappears, gone, out of there. The sister's calling him. He's nowhere to be found. When she finally looks up where he's at that school again with that girl again. He does not come back home until 2 days after his baby is born. And when he comes back, she immediately goes to his phone, finds the girl, looks up her profile, sees what school that she goes to, sees that she drives a white Audi, gets all this information about her. She wakes him up. She calls the girl. The girl had no idea he already had kids. He's in the messages talking about, I'm so excited to have my first kid with you. Of course, that girl ends up getting pregnant. He goes and visits her twice in a short period of time. And the second time he went, Destiny followed him, and she went all the way up to the school, and then he stopped at a Walmart. So she goes to the Walmart, and then his car is parked up in the back of the parking lot, and then she sees that his location is actually pinging across the street. So she goes there as well, and then she sees that white Audi. She doesn't ask any questions. She grabs her bat and just goes to town on that car. Just starts boom boom, and then the pregnant girl gets out. She starts beating her ass, and then she takes the girl's car, drives it onto the highway, crashes it, and then at this point she's like, wow, the cops are definitely coming after me. So she leaves. She kidnaps Greg in the meantime. They end up catching her because they get her tags when she tries to run into the girl a second time at the school and pay somebody $50 to go into the school. The cops catch her tags while she's running away, and when she's back at the house one day going to go garden with her sister, they find out that that's her car, and they pull her over with 50 other cars, but she already knew she was going to get pulled over. She had a feeling, a gut feeling, today's the day, and sure enough, they got her. But truthfully, the cops didn't have much evidence. They just had hearsay from the girl, and they were she's She's like, what do you mean I pulled up my car and carjacked somebody? That doesn't make much sense, does it? And so what ended up happening was Greg willingly went down to the cops and gave a statement and was like, yeah, like my baby mama was totally there. She beat that girl. She took her car. She crashed it, like completely gave a statement. And Destiny's sitting there like, after everything I've done for you, after everything I've done.
And this nigga a snitch? Golly. You hit everything bad, bro. Like, man.
For you, this is how you repay me? Really? All the times I could have turned you in? So at this point, she don't trust him. She don't like him, nothing. She's like, you got me not only arrested, but gave a statement. She forgives him. They move on. And then sure enough, in a short time span, she ends up calling the cops 3 times. Once for holding her hostage for 7 hours with hostage negotiators outside. Once he beat her so badly that he like felt so bad, her eye socket was broken. He took her to the ambulance area by the hospital, pushed her out the car, and then drove off. And then another time he ended up like driving them into the water in a car with her babies in there, and she had to climb out the window holding her babies. Mind you, while he's holding her hostage for 7 hours, she's just like gardening, smoking, laughing at him like, you're about to go to jail, bro. Like, you're for sure going to jail now. He does, and she's talking to him while he's in jail, and she gets hit with like 33 counts of contempt of court because they're just like, we need you guys to separate, you know? He ends up getting 1 year house arrest, and they tell him he can go back to her house, and she literally moves so that she has an apartment that isn't registered with the cops and lets him come stay the year with them through his house arrest. And it ends up being actually okay. She calls the cops a few times, but it was never anything serious. At this point, they're living in Memphis, and Memphis is a little bit more relaxed with their cops. So every time she's calling them to escort him out of her apartment, like, it's no issues. He comes back a few days later after cooling off. At this point, his house arrest ends, and he actually ends up going to prison for 2 years for the holding her hostage for 7 hours situation. And so she holds him down for the entire 2 years that he's in jail, sending him $500 a week until she finds out that he was actually sleeping with the guard the entire time, at least one of the guards the entire time. And she found out because he hit her up one day and was like, hey, I'm not getting commissary anymore, and they're taking away my phone. And she's like, what happened? And so he doesn't really give her much information. So she's like, well, let me just call the warden up. So she calls the jail, and he's like, yeah, we caught the guard and him in an inappropriate relationship. She passed him something in the kitchen, and we found half the supplies in the guard tower, and we found half the supplies in his jail cell. And so he caught another case while in jail, and he had to get another lawyer. Him and the cellmate end up getting into it, and the cellmate reaches out to Destiny on Facebook and tells him like, he's playing you, he's keeping all your money, he has like $30,000 on commissary now, like he's fixing to buy a car when he gets out. Right before he went to jail, they were actually pregnant with their 3rd child, and so she ended up having the baby halfway through his sentencing. A month before he came out of prison, she actually ends up winning $100,000 at the casino. I'll put the picture here. His grandmother tells her, like, do not tell Greg that you want that money, like, zip your mouth. But her being an honest person, she actually ends up telling him. It's normal when she tells him. At this point, she's making like $30,000 to $40,000 a month from all the businesses she started. Money that she was sending him was nothing to her. The grandmother tells him, why don't you pay the $25,000 that he needs for the lawyer? And so she's like, okay. She puts up the money. Greg's talking like, when I come home, I'm going to be so much better. I'm going to do better for you and the kids. At this point, the kids are always at the grandmother's house because Destiny has a really bad gambling addiction and just is always at the casino. When he comes home, he starts to like already start looking up like exotic cars and seeing like what kind of car he's gonna get, and she's just looking at him like, who's paying for this, you know? He would say like little comments on the side like, yo, somebody can shoot you in the head for that type of money, like if you don't give me some money, I'm gonna take it. And that's when she started feeling like really uncomfortable. One day they decide to go to the casino, and Greg's cousin's with them, and Greg's complaining about where the baby's car seat is. It's been in the same spot for 2 years. Destiny's like, I'm not moving it. He's like, move it. So eventually she just moves it, doesn't think much of it. They go to the casino, they leave, and when they're leaving, he takes like a weird way home. He doesn't really take that way, and she doesn't think much of it. She looks up, and there's a car a far distance away from them, but he's driving mad slow, doesn't think anything of it. Again, looks down, looks up. Before she knows it, they've like caught up to the car, right? And before she can even make a second thought, pew pew pew, shots start firing from the car into only Destiny's side of the car. And at this point, she's like, you know, freaking out. The cousins leaned up against the car. Greg is just sitting there, doesn't even use the pew pew that he has to fire back. And she's just like, what's going on? The car speeds off. They start driving back to her grandmother's house. They're on like some obscure back road, and she's cussing him out, and he's over here like, I know that was a man that you were messing with when I was at in jail, like, don't give me that. She's like, I was with nobody while you were gone. Like, who was that? Why did they only shoot into my side of the car? So she's really feeling like she can't trust him. She like really should get away from him at this point. So before Greg came home from prison, Destiny was letting Greg's sister and Greg's sister's stepsister also stay with them. They all grew up together, but Greg and the stepsister obviously don't share blood. And so she was letting them stay there. It was all good. Until one day they stole Destiny's car and then they went on like a joyride. She woke up and was like, why wouldn't you tell me you took my car? You know, like, don't do that again. And then she was doing business, like I said, at this point, and she needed an Apple Pay account. And so she asked the stepsister, like, hey, can I send you money and you know, send it to me? So the girl's like, yeah. When Destiny found out, she tried to fight her. She couldn't. She like went to the house and couldn't find her. And when she pulled out, the girl came out and tried to run up on Destiny's car. So Destiny hit her with a car twice, drove off. While on Instagram Live, Destiny ends up going on a 1 hour long police chase because of this whole situation. To get revenge, the stepsister ends up sleeping with Greg the day he got out of jail. Literally slept with him at a motel just to get revenge. The sister never told Destiny anything about this, and so she felt really like betrayed by all of that. A few days later, Destiny ends up letting Greg use her car to go somewhere. He comes back with a girl and she figures it out. She goes to the gate. She beats that girl. The girl ends up getting left by Greg and the homeboy. They leave her there. Destiny takes the girl hostage inside of the house. The girl's crying, saying, I'm going to call the cops. She's like, you're not calling anybody. Tell Greg to come back. She's like, my phone's actually off. I can't call anybody. Can I call my friends? Destiny ends up seeing that Greg did pull back up. She goes downstairs, takes his pew-pew, starts beating with him. The neighbors come outside. The girl's asking the neighbors to use their phone to call the cops. And she's like, no. The homeboy ends up taking the girl home and Destiny ends up beating that man. The neighbors were like, this is not our business. We're just here to watch. She is so upset. She doesn't speak to him for 3 weeks. A few months later, she has to move out again. The mother ends up letting them use her name to get an apartment, but is like, do not fight with Greg, like try to be peaceful. At this point, she has her 4th baby too. He comes to the hospital, tries to claim that the baby's not his because the baby's too dark, but Destiny's like, this is your child. The sister brings her friend to the hospital, some Latin girl, and then Destiny ends up finding out the Latin girl's actually sleeping with her baby daddy, Greg, and the sister never told her, took her side, like just completely betrayed Destiny. Latin girl proved to be the most diabolical one of all the girls that Greg messed with. She ended up calling CPS on Destiny multiple times, even after Destiny begged Greg to get her to stop calling CPS. She never did it. When she finally found the girl, she beat her down and told her, every time I see you, it's going to be an ass whooping for you. The girl just kept calling CPS on Destiny every single time, even when once Greg ends up getting snowed into Destiny's house, being on the run from the police. He ends up trying to find, you know, some like refuge at Destiny's house, and when she found out that he was there, she called CPS on her again. So this is when Destiny was like, I'm completely done. She ends up getting pew-pew pulled on her by Greg while they're in the car arguing about this girl constantly calling CPS on her, and she gets so scared she calls the cops and decides like, I'm done, I'm leaving. When he first went to prison, she tried to help him out and then eventually cut him off. She moved back to Florida, started to set up a new life, met a new guy. She left everything back in Memphis. Even when her mom was like trying to help her process everything because she's finally away from this dude and he's in prison and she can like process everything, she ends up like defending Greg and like beating up her mother. She never forgives herself for this, but like that's how like twisted and like connected she was to this guy. Mind you, Destiny wasn't looking for a relationship, so this guy was very much a sneaky link. When he asked if it was okay if he get a girlfriend, she got mad and ended up leaking their videos that they made together on the internet, and he got so upset that he cut her off. Now they did make up since then, and they're going to try to make it happen in the future when Destiny's more healed, but that was like the first time she ever met a really good guy, right? So when all that went down and you know she had to step away because the guy like stood 10 toes, he was like, never contact me again, she ended up going back to Greg. So when she was taking the kids over to Mississippi for Greg to have the kids for the summer, she ends up getting a message from some girl, this message right here, saying like, I have a baby with the same man that you have a baby with. And Destiny's just like, what in the world, like you have another child? And she starts beating on him and he's just like, no, she's lying. She calls the girl on FaceTime and the girl's like, stop lying, Greg, like stop it. And she's a girl with mental disabilities. Greg got her pregnant. She's 19 years old. She was working at Sonic at the time and he was taking her entire paycheck. That's what I meant when I was like, he took advantage of her. He was taking her entire paycheck and then ended up getting her pregnant. He wasn't helping her. He wasn't doing anything. And so the girl was just reaching out to Destiny like, please help me, like I'm tired. You just wanted to share that story. Destiny, I'm just so happy that you got out of it. And mind you, she found out about this whole girl that worked at Sonic in January 2024. So like this spanned from when she was 15 years old to when she was 23 in 2024. So many other things that happened. She's an absolute amazing storyteller. I highly suggest you guys go watch her story and all the other backups videos that she made about more in-depth questions that you guys are probably going to have about the story. I'm just here to give you guys the main scoop. I appreciate you guys so much. You tagged me in this.
Honestly, I don't want to hear nothing else about that story. I don't know what's making me more upset. That story or the fact that my grass cutting dude literally come at 1:46 to cut my grass when I'm recording. I don't know what make me more mad. Seriously. But you know what that is? That's literally God telling me that I need to elevate. It's time for me to get me another house with a state-of-the-art soundproof. With state-of-the-art soundproof in it. I'm getting tired of people coming like, bro, I started recording at 1. I've been in the gym, been everything. You couldn't come at 11? You couldn't come at 10 o'clock. You come right when I start recording. Man. See you guys next video, man. Thank you guys for watching the video. See you guys next video. Always remember, be safe out here, kings and queens. Let's get it.